Well, welcome everyone to the final of the fall semester's research conversations. We're very privileged to have here today Dr. Chae, Rhee, an associate professor of sport management in our college. And personally, he's my next door neighbor. So I think he's just a few yards away from me here on Edge Knoll Drive right now. It's great to have you here, Chae. I'm just tell a brief bit about you, and then I will let you talk. After you talk, there will be an opportunity for questions, which I can help you field, and we will finish around 1 o'clock. So Dr. Chae Rhee's very interested in improving the understanding of sport consumer behavior and sport organizational behaviors, internationally in particular. They're very important topics to predict various behavior aspects of sport consumption and organizational behaviors, such as media and merchandise consumption, event attendance, social mobility, social creation, and social competition. He has taught sport marketing, special issues in sport management, sport market research, sport event planning, sport event management, sport and society, sport finance and practicum in sports, and other topics. He earned his Ph.D. at Seoul National University in sport marketing and consumer behavior and did a postdoc at the University of Florida. Welcome, Dr. Rhee.
Thank you, AG. You can just walk over here and then you can do this with me.
I can join
right
you,
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that everyone's semester is winding down nicely. So today I am going to talk about this particular topic that you're seeing on the screen, the impact of corporate social responsibility efforts of NFL on Generation Z fans. And also I am going to talk about how I work with my graduate students. So without further ado, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a case that I just encountered with Tammy. Tammy is also, I think she was here before. Mm-hmm. She's here, and she was also on the committee with me. And then I'm going to talk about common issues graduate students face when they first engage in thesis development. And then I'm going to talk about the study. So I'm going to talk about this student named Yong. He was from South Korea, and then he did his master's in 3 years. So it's not unusual to do 3 years, but for him, he struggled in the beginning and then with the language skills and whatnot. And then he was able to gather himself together and he was able to push forward with his thesis. But the problem came to him again with his thesis chair departing our program to be with another program. So he was kind of left stranded, and then we had to kind of pick it up from where he was, and then we had to push him toward a successful defense of his thesis. So if you look at his topic on the screen, this is a very interesting topic. At first, so I assumed the chair's role, and then I worked with him. And then what he was working with Teho was great, but I saw some issues that most of all these graduate students face. And then I was able to change a few things around, and then we were able to he was able to defend successfully. And now this new paper is under review for one of the top journal in our sport management field, which is the Sport Marketing Quarterly. And for a master students to pursue a publication, it's rare. And we are looking to hear from them in a bit. So I'm really fingers crossed. Okay, so while I was reviewing his paper, and I recognized a couple issues. So let's dive into that. So he talks about corporate social responsibility, and you can see from the screen, corporate social responsibility is not something new. It actually started from, they were talking about social responsibility in the 1950s. And then from then on, it was very vague concept, but now to this day, it's ever changing concept because the market structure, market itself, sport market and general market is changing drastically. So you cannot really never define, what is sports, what is corporate social responsibility. So as you see, it's a corporate social responsibility. It's about corporations giving back to the community and in diverse different manners. So corporate social responsibility is important because it's a significant nature for the business, in general business and sport business as well. So it influences business performance, business competitiveness, brand evaluation, brand reputation, and even purchase intention. So it's been studied for longest time, from 50s to this day. But engaging in corporate social responsibility doesn't guarantee the success of your business. It has to be done right. So what we see is we've seen a lot of corporate social responsibilities effort fail. In businesses perspective, they're using the funds, money, resources, and to do something better, but at the end it fails and it kind of kicks them in the behind. So what happens when it fails? When companies' motives are seen as profit oriented. Right? You're trying to sell products by trying to fake yourself in, engage in good deed. And also in the same line, motivation is not seen as altruistic, and negative CSR association can be detrimental to this, any business who engages in it. Let's look into sports. So from 2006, way before, but Babiak and Wolf kind of defined the sports in society, sports CSR in sports. And then she told a story about, regardless of what your intentions are, you're in it to sell tickets or in it to do some social benefiting things, acts. Regardless of that, you need to engage in CSR as a sport organization. That was what was said. And then from then on, there's been a lot of activities that's been going on with CSR in sports. So one very old CSR from sports that I remember is in the 80s with NBA, with Stay in School campaign, Stay in School. So all these, I remember Michael Jordan coming out and, as a rookie talking about, you have to have a degree, you have to finish high school, you have to finish college. And then he talks about his path. And then when he was down, he knew that it was a backup plan for him. And again, from then on, there's been a lot of corporate social responsibility effort that's done by sport franchises and sport leagues. The same. So we see here with the NBA, NHL, and NFL, they're all engaged in some sort of CSR. And athletes, with their unique characteristics, with their star power, media exposures, and public attention, they do engage in some sort of a corporate social responsibility, not corporate, but their personal social responsibility, and they engage back to their leagues. So we can see some of these examples here. So when I was reviewing Yong's paper, and I recognized that first issue that he was facing, that the first issue was, excuse me, the framework. So he was bringing in Carroll's framework that was established in 1979. And it is a easy mistake to make because we are telling our students to go back to basics, like beginning, right? And what they do is they look for these first established model, and then they go from there. And I think what happened here with Yong was he was looking for Carroll. And Carroll's paper here is one of the most recognized paper in CSR area, but it's you can see that it's from 79. And if you look at these, this particular framework, it looks at economic responsibility as a social pillar, legal responsibility, and ethical responsibility, and philanthropic responsibility. Meaning that, as you see here, a company has to be profitable and obey the law, be ethical, and be a good corporate citizen. But if you think about it, to this day, to today's people's minds, is being profitable as an enterprise, is that a socially responsible act? You're making money for yourself or your shareholders. To me, it doesn't really make sense. You are obeying the law. Yes, you should obey the law. That's nothing to do with my society or you giving back to the community. Be ethical. Yes, you have to be ethical. It's nothing new there. And philanthropic, yes, you have to be philanthropic. So that makes a little more sense. But other three pillars that Carroll talks about when he was in 70s, maybe back then, right? Back in 70s, making money for the shareholders was a good deed. And, obeying the law may be a good deed, and being ethical is a good deed. But again, today, it is not the case. So I spoke to him with this, and then we had to change the framework. So what I see here is this: current CSR trend in sports and in business the same. Back in the day, CSR was seen as an obligation to maximize profit. We are doing these good things, so buy from us. We're good people, so you should buy from us. So that was the case. But today, it's different. CSR is a proactive contribution to the society. And people with their cell phones and with the influx of information, they find out these things fairly quickly. So we decided to change the framework, and then we looked around and we weren't able to find a set framework that was done because, like I said in the beginning, CSR is ever changing. So what we have done is we decided to look into NFL, and we did some sort of a content analysis to see what social CSR effort are they making, and then we decided to see how that is going to impact our fan base. Okay, so first is Green Initiative. NFL is actively engaging in Green Initiative, environmental effort. So they're planting trees. They're doing a lot of different things to contribute to the greener greener globe. And the second attribute is, this is kind of new, and this is what we saw as a very new initiative that is done by a lot of different companies at the same NFL, which was a social justice related CSR with current uprising of the social justice issues around this nation and globally. Black Lives Matter, AAPI hate, all these different issues came to be a real issue that people face today. And athletes actively engage in social change or social justice CSR. We see here, NFL just allowed players to have their tag language about change or social justice CSR on back of their helmets. So there's Tom Brady talking about, end racism here. So again, we all recognize that there's numerous type of injustice still exists in society, and then athletes and the leagues are trying to voice their opinion on these issues. So that is another very unique and new initiatives that we found while we were building this framework. Then we all know about Place 60. So Place 60 and Crucial Catch, these are some of the health-related CSR that NFL was engaging with. So it was about raising awareness of public health issues, raising awareness of youth engaging in physical activity, so all these things. That they have done it, and then we picked health initiative as another pillar for our framework. And then another initiative is education-related initiatives. There's a character education that NFL is consistently engaging in. And then NFL just, in 2015, NFL started to support children through various educational programs. One of which is working with EA Sports, the Madden football game. So they created this game with football by numbers, and then that is to educate elementary school to 5th and 9th graders about math and science through game of football. So again, this is a big push that's been happening from NFL with their social effort. And lastly, the patriotism related CSR. So salute to service is one of the big pillar for NFL with their CSR effort. And then they're trying to do recognize and honor the military service men and veterans. And they bring in players, bring in soldiers to the field, service members to the field to recognize them and honor them. So this is another pillar that is unique to sports. So the issue with the framework led us to build in a new framework of CSR in terms of sports industry. And the second issue I recognized was, or Tammy also mentioned this in his Wanyang's proposal, was the population. So population, if you recall, he was looking to see the CSR efforts impact on sports fans. So we all are sports fans, and I'm sure that we are, hopefully. And this is us, our fans storming the UW field, and then there's Delora planting the flag, and there's a lot of controversy happened from this. But what I'm trying to show here is that these fans are not one. They're unique in their own way. So when we say sports fans, we cannot really define them. Therefore, we cannot get effective outcome from our framework to the sport fan base. So what we decided to do is look to narrow this population down. And I'm sure if some of the faculty members who are here, when you are advising students, that is one of the issue that when we interact with our graduate students, because they're trying to go too big. And then sometimes our job is to narrow this down and down and down and make it, a little tiny project that you could do, and then that could be impactful and meaningful in their own way. So that's what we decided to do, and then we narrowed this field down. So we came to look into the Generation G. Who's Gen Z? So they're born after 96, and then they're accounted for 24% of American population. And then they have very unique characteristics. So why are they important? Because they contribute to economy, spending about $29 billion to $149 billion to our economy. And they are a new segment of companies all over the globe. And then their unique characteristic comes from their digital savviness, tech savviness, and then their most highly educated generation. And then they're very creative and innovative. And at the same time, what I found from my own experience is they are one of the most socially responsible generation. So if you look at some of these pictures that I'm showing you right now on the screen, these Generation Zs are one of the most loyal participants of these rallies that's happening around the country. And for my own experience, I hosted this, organized this rally for the AAPI issues that we were having at that time. And I was able to gather about 20 speakers, and then it was rather, long speeches. And then those speakers were very generous with their time, and they were able to speak, from their hearts. So it went longer. And then as time went on, people started to like drift a little bit. And then when we got to the point where we marched with these participants, most of the loyal and supporters were Gen Zs, those younger folks. They stayed around, they built their own signs, they're marching and they're chanting. They were chanting by themselves. So again, from my experience, they are one of the most socially responsible generation. And biggest issue of all, when I look at Gen Z from a sports marketer's perspective, is that they are least likely to be loyal fans of sports. So there are some of these studies that's been done, and Gen Zers are about half likely as millennials to watch sports often, twice likely to never watch. And Gen Z less likely than general public, other generations, to identify themselves as sports fans. And then NFL self is look at their the fan mix, you can see that their fan base is drifting, especially when it comes to Gen Zers. So, some of our participants here today, you might look at your children, right, sitting next to you when you're watching games. They might be watching games, but they also be doing something like this, glued to their phone, and they're, watching the game, but they're doing something different. And they're, like I said, they're tech savvy. They might be playing game that's related to the game that you're seeing on the screen. So again, Gen Z is the consumer group that sports has to focus on. And we are seeing some of these studies on Gen Z in sports field, but it's not enough. So we decided to go this route. And then one of the last issue, or one of the biggest issue that I saw was study was too theoretical, and the student tried to use too complicated statistical analysis to complete his study. When he talks about structural equational modeling, indirect effects, and bootstrapping, all these big words. But the problem with these is that we have to recognize that sport management is a applied science, meaning that it doesn't exist with not bettering or improving the industry that we are serving. So when you try to use all these difficult terminologies and statistical analysis, that doesn't make sense to the professionals, it becomes an issue. I mean, I counted my CV, and I have written like 30 publications, and then I'm asking myself, who read these articles? Who's paying attention to these articles? Maybe different other academics who tries to write similar papers, they be reading my stuff, but is real practitioners, those industry folks, do they take advantage of what I have found in the industry? So again, my goal here and on is going from theoretical to more practical, and then going back to the idea of we are applied science. So again, so all these things were managed, and then we came to this new title that I am going to talk about briefly today. So the impact of different types of NFL's corporate social responsibility on behavioral intention of Generation Z. So again, with new framework, new population, and simpler analysis, we were able to complete the study in short period of time. Okay, so purpose was general goal is to understand a CSR within a professional sport context, because we built a new framework of CSR in sports. And then we examined the 5 different aspects of CSR effort of NFL on Generation Z. And we would like to see those 5 dimensions and how it's impacting the behavior intentions, and then tries to understand the Generation Z's perception on CSR. Okay, so this is a new research model. It seems complicated, but again, it's the 5 pillars that we see on the left side of the screen is the 5 different CSR initiatives. And then the right side is 3 different consumption behaviors. So again, we are looking at word of mouth, traditional word of mouth, and then visit intention. Are you ready to share all these, what you have seen, those social efforts on your social media, right? That's what we call word of mouth. Traditional word of mouth is, are you going to talk about this issue that you saw? And then lastly, the visit intention is, are you willing to go to the games because of these things? So again, it looks complicated, but it wasn't done with SEM. It was just done with multiple regression. So we went into data collection, and it took about 2 weeks to collect the data. The time was not spent too long, but I assure you that he was not sleeping for those 2 weeks because he was on time crunch. He had to evaluate every responses that came through, and then he was, and we used the service called mTurk. I'm going to talk about in a bit. And then we were able to collect 552 NFL fans who were born after 1996, located in the United States. So if you look at the table on the right, there's a good mixture of male and female, so 64 to 35, not quite up to the NFL fan mix, gender mix, but pretty close. And then we were able to gather all these 552 samples from the target age group. And education is something that you might want to look at, because if you look, majority of about 12% of people had high school education, and rest of the population had more than some college education background. So like I said, Gen Zers are most highly educated group of all. Okay, and so procedure, we use the mTurk's mechanical Turk mTurk service to gather the information. We reached for a hit approval rate of 70%, and who are located in the United States. We were able to do that. And then we screened the data diligently. So we screened the data diligently because Gen Zers are hard to find, because it's they're younger, and then some of them might not be interested in doing something like this. So we were seeing a lot of older generation people who's outside of this target group was participating. So we had to screen them. And then we were seeing some of the fans that are not from the United States. So we had to screen them at the same. 40-cent compensation was given to each mTurk workers. So for the analysis, confirmatory fact analysis was done to measure the psychometric property of the survey items, and then multiple regression for testing of the hypothesis. And for this analysis, we used the Jamovi service or software. And this is similar to SPSS, but one thing about Jamovi is this is R-based software that gives you a little more freedom, and it's free. So some of the students who are interested in analytics or statistics, and you are not in the you're not in it with a deep wallet, then this is some service that you might be interested in. Okay, let's look at the results. So the results shows that environmental and social justice and patriotism initiatives were all effective with word of mouth, traditional word of mouth, and then the visit intention. And the health and education initiative were partially effective with some of these, and then especially with e-motivation, word of mouth, and then visit intention. They're really partially effective on those two. So we thought this was pretty interesting, and we were able to discuss, what this means, and then why this happened. And I also have some questions too. So this is the detailed statistics for the findings. And I'm not going to bore you with all these statistics, so we can move on to the discussion portion of it. Okay, so what we found was Generation Z cares deeply about social and environmental concerns. And then, as I mentioned before, Generation Zs are looked at as the most educated and most socially dedicated generation. So they do care about racial equity, human rights, and environmental issues, and we can see that from there. And then when the Black Lives Matter and the kneeling of the players, this took place, and it came from NFL players who are African American. And if you look at this, the whole league, it's about the 60% of the population is African American. And then when they come out and say that this is what they have been through, this was more powerful message to the Generation Z. Also, environmental issue was very effective because we understand that Generation Z has grown up with global warming and air pollution, and pollution happens to be some of the issues that lingers in our minds all the time. Okay, and something very interesting, and I was literally shocked, and this might be a conversation point for later discussion. The fact that Generation Z responded strongly toward patriotism-related CSR in NFL. And if you think about it, Generation Z never went through a war. And they haven't, I mean, they're young, so they're not part of the military family. So maybe they are, but I'm not sure. I don't think the 500 people were part of the military family. So I was like generally shocked in a way when we saw that patriotism initiative was one of the most powerful, and it was the most powerful initiatives that hit Generation Z hard. So that was one very unique portion. And the latter we have discussed and then found out that there's a lot of military family relationship that has been built to these younger generation. And also after 9/11, the education on patriotism got a little more robust and pushed a little hard on Generation Z. And then maybe that is the reason they're responding well to patriotism, patriotism initiative. Okay, and lastly, there were two initiatives that didn't have a lot of effect. One of them was health initiative. So considering that most of the NFL players are living with, big injuries, and then the CTE has been on the news for the longest time when they say that, hey, health is important, and then you need to engage in sports and you need to engage in football, that might not work well with Generation Z. And they're like, oh, yeah, I understand that health is important, but you are telling me when you have CTE and when you have broken bones in your body. So that kind of translated into not having too much impact on Gen Z's response to health initiative of NFL. And lastly, the education initiative was not accepted well from the Generation Z population. That also could be understood because about 50% of NFL players are dropouts of college. So when you consider that they are dropouts, and then they say that, hey, you need to finish your school, that's your backup plan, you need to, do your studies and complete your education, that doesn't seem, genuine, right? You preach that you're not doing, so we're not gonna listen to you, kind of. Okay, so I think that's one of the issues that NFL's, among those 5 initiatives, NFL's health initiative and educational initiative was not very effective toward Generation Z fans. So again, Laura emailed me and asked, would you be doing something like this? And I said, yes. And then Laura also asked, it'd be good for students to listen to what you do. And I thought, yeah, I can probably talk about my recent experience with my student and how he was able to develop his thesis into a publishable document. And then we are really waiting to hear from one of the top journals in the field. So I thought I'd share something like this. I think this concludes my short talk. Thank you. And if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Young Chae.
Thank you.
Excellent talk. And we have about 14 minutes, and we'll finish up a little bit before 1 to allow Laura and Shola to talk about what's coming next semester and ideas that we have. I have a question. I'm wondering, you didn't, and this is fine, you didn't talk about name, image, and likeness
yes, I
going
did.
on that is the new thing in college sports. And I wonder, I wonder how that affects Gen Z's, the most prominent athletes who are able to profit off their name, image, and likeness, NIL, and how that affects corporate social responsibility and their views of it.
Wow, that's a big question. Actually, I am working on that particular piece right now. We have not seen that. So we've talked about NIL for the longest time. And the perspective of the NSL discussing sport business, sport management was not about fanship. It was more toward the law and legal aspect of it. So should they get paid? Should they not should be paid? Or is this, what about Title IX? What about equality? How about female athletes versus football program athletes? So that was one of my biggest concern. And that's another of my topic for maybe next time when I speak in front of you guys, I might be able to talk a little bit about that. So my interest, and then I see Taylor McCoy, one of our graduate students in the audience. And in my class, she actually worked on something like that she's on a swimming team. And then she wanted to see how we kind of discussed and then how these swimmers feel about NIL and how they feel about, is this an opportunity or is this like, is this going to be push us toward, having that relative deprivation where football players are getting $1 million, whereas we're not getting anything. So yes, that's a big question. And then that is a scary question for collegiate sports because the sports exist or bank on the parity of the performance. And then this NIL deal will deeply impact the recruiting system. Right. So the bigger cities with bigger corporations, they might be able to support bigger NIL dollars to the players, and then you end up getting all these good players going to, certain school with a big pocket. So that's the worry. And then schools like us, we are proud, Cougars, but at the same time, we are located in Pullman with not a lot of business around. So we weren't able to fund those athletes who needs the support or who wants the NIL money. So yes, that is a great question and great research topic. And then I am working to see how fans, the college students would react to that type of change. And then, college sports wouldn't exist without the college student support. If they recognize these players as an employee and not representing themselves, then would they still support the games and football games and tailgating? Would that happen? So that's another topic that I am working on right now. So AJ, I am sorry that I cannot give you the answer right now, but maybe next time, next talk, I should be able to talk about that with solid results.
First week of spring semester, you'll let us know.
Okay.
I have other questions, but I'm going to open it up to other people to ask any questions that they have. Anyone in the audience, please just come forward and ask your question of Young Chae, or a comment. It doesn't need to be a question, just. So Tammy, might you talk a little bit about your work with Young Chae on this, and tell us a little bit more about it, give your perspective on what's going on here?
Um, yeah, yes and no. I was just on the committee and watched the student's presentation and
Okay.
read his thesis, and I think Young Jae did a fine job of explaining it. I started to write a question or a kind of a response in response to your question, Young Jae, about the name, likeness, and image thing. I said it, and it's going down a rabbit hole away from what Young Jae was just talking about. But the NLI is an issue for international students, Young Jae. If you go down that path, because obviously related to their work thesis, they're not allowed to be employed or to their student visa. So
yes,
that's something that that's a whole nother twist that's not related to the football versus the swimmer versus the golfer, but throw in the fact that there's an international student, and that's a whole nother issue
That's very interesting.
has been brought forward. But that's not related to corporate social responsibility per se.
Well, Young Chae, I have a question about this whole idea of corporate social responsibility. So I just want to voice it, and not necessarily something that I feel, but it's something that I think can be voiced. That it's a lot of it's sort of window dressing that corporations are doing and showing, and the NFL being a very massively profitable corporation, has some athletes out planting trees and, helping kids and reading stuff in school. I watch NFL games and I see these ads and so forth. What would you say about that? I mean, would you say that it's sort of window dressing? And I wonder, sort of related to that is the whole Colin Kaepernick thing. If they were really going to be responsible corporations, wouldn't they allow? Wouldn't they give somebody like Colin Kaepernick an opportunity to be the NFL quarterback that he once was? And he's never had that he hasn't had that opportunity yet. And so I just wonder, what are your thoughts about those issues?
So is this window dressing? Yes. But the point is not to get caught. Right?
Okay.
So it seems there's a difference between CSR and CRM, meaning cause-related marketing versus corporate social responsibility. There's a little bit of distinction between those two. Cost-related marketing is something that you do, and you have seen something like this: buy one give one model. So if you buy a shoe, the company will give a shoe to people in need. So that's what they call CRM, and they are literally using the CRM to sell their product. So if you buy from us, we'll give one to other people in need. So that's one aspect of it. So they are right up front, and if you buy from us, we are giving it back. And whereas social responsibility is they're not really looking for a quick response or a quick return on their investment, whereas it's just most about reputation, how they build a reputation. So to this day, it's not about, are you really, true or pure about your intentions? I think it's more about, if you don't do it, you're not right. So, because if you see every product that you see maybe on your table, you should be able to find out this recycle signs, or it's somehow related to social causes or environmental causes and whatnot. So again, if you look around, almost every company in the world is doing it. But in order to be effective, you cannot get caught. And if you are genuine about your support or your effort, then it is likely that it's going to get accepted as a pure. And then what we've seen from this particular study is the same way. It seems that all these effort that was impactful was one that was looked at as a pure, given back to the society. Like, especially with a social justice pillar, they responded really well to that, because Generation Z was really about that particular cause. And then all these players coming out and saying these things was very impactful, and that kind of hit the spot, I should say. So maybe, I don't know if this answers your question.
Yeah,
but I think that's what it is today. So,
yeah, no, that's quite helpful. Other questions? Any of the graduate students here from sport management? Taylor, you want to say anything about what he said about your work, or any other kinds of questions that you might have, or comments?
I don't have any questions right now. I thought the presentation was very interesting. And I think the name, image, likeness part will be very interesting, just in looking at the conversations that we have had, or that people have come and spoke to us about name, image, likeness, and kind of how it affects us, and also how it affects the international students on our team, and us being a typically non-revenue generating sport. It will be interesting, which I don't think we've quite seen the end of it yet. So thank you for a great presentation, though.
Thank you, Taylor. Well, we just have a few moments left, and I'm mindful of people's time. I would like to offer the floor to Laura and to Shola to talk about the research conversations and the other kinds of ways that we try to enhance research in the college, and what may be coming up next semester.
Hi, it's Laura. Thank you so much, Yong, Chae. I learned so much about Gen Z and a lot of fields that I didn't know about. I love the breadth that you brought to this. And we will have at least 2 more research conversations in the spring semester. And we're focusing a lot of our efforts on a program that maybe Shola will highlight here. I'll give the floor to Shola now.
I think he left.
Oh yeah, he probably had something at 1 o'clock. So just to get you excited about this, we will be having intensive grant workshops, visiting experts, a really exciting spring program for faculty and interested graduate students, as well as our research conversations. We're really focusing on helping people find funding opportunities and learn lots of skills that go beyond some of the other offerings here at WSU, and we'll focus specifically on COE, faculty, and grad student needs. So we will share more about that probably later in December and early January, and we hope to see some of you there. So thank you so much, Yong Chae. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Young Chae. I really appreciate it, and I'll be over soon to question you more. Thanks, everybody, and have a great holiday season, and great rest of the semester. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.